too.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to bring the meeting to order. If you'll
Yes,
please
I got it
stand
in
for
the
the
email, so.
invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of a community. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we make decisions that might affect our staff, employees, and residences of Mount Healthy, and continue to remind us that all that we hear today and all that we accomplish is for the pursuit of truth, for the greater glory of you, and for the service of humanity. We ask these things in your name. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jack Court.
Staggone. Once again, welcome everyone to the September 19th meeting of the Mount Healthy City Council. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lingo.
Here.
Mr. Carson.
Here.
Mr. Redding.
Here.
Mrs. Dosa.
Here.
Mr. Joy.
Here.
Mr. Young.
Here.
Mrs. Russell.
Okay, everybody is here. We're on a roll. Thank you. Minutes from the September 5th, 2023 council meeting. Did anybody have any corrections?
Sign it, and then Thursday went back in, I can sign it.
Anything, council? If we have no corrections, I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes as printed.
I'll make a motion to approve minutes as printed.
Okay, Ms. Lingo has made a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Everybody will. Mr. George is seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, council. Correspondence. Does anybody have any correspondence they wish to bring?
Got other minutes? No? Okay.
Yeah, for the work session? Hmm? Well, it was a,
I think it was all rolled into one.
we don't have to approve those, do we?
We've always had minutes, I guess we
I don't
don't
think we
approve
need to
them.
approve them.
Yeah. Doesn't make sense.
When I was clerk.
Okay.
I just lost my papers.
Okay.
Does anybody have any correspondence? Okay, I have a letter that was asked to be read out loud. It is from Karen Arnett. And it's from the Tree Commission.
Excuse me.
Dated 19 September 2023. Dear council members, I am writing you to thank you for the considering the Tree Commission's, I'm sorry, I'll start over. I am writing to thank you for considering the tree protection ordinance before you. Since the Tree Commission was established by a vote of council in 2011, approximately 150 trees have been planted on public land. That's not a lot by most standards, but it's a solid accomplishment. A great majority of trees, street trees, with a handful in the city park, Hastings Pocket Park, and the school grounds. We have a very high survival rate for the trees, thanks to ongoing efforts by the dedicated volunteer tree commissioners who have been appointed by the mayor. On a shoestring budget, we have managed to make good start to bringing back tree-lined streets, an asset that was historically part of our town's vibrant past. Many were proud of this feature of the city. The ordinance is primarily aimed at protecting this ongoing investment in our public trees against the potential harm, intentional or unintentional, that can be inflicted by contractors as well as residences. It adapts industry standards for pruning and protection of trees during construction as law, and it provides guidelines for the protection of trees as residents come and go. It establishes a standard that the street trees are a public asset, a part of our city's infrastructure, just as sidewalks, streets, flower planters, and public places. They are not simply private property, but a whole as part of our public infrastructure. At our last city council meeting, a question was raised as to whether the residents are going to feel forced into having trees planted on their streets. In the last 12 years, I do not recall any objections being raised after the fact. My door-to-door survey indicates that the streets where the trees have been become well-established. The residents are quite happy with them. We are careful to allow people to opt out, as a handful did. And they had to do was call the city itself or myself. And the addresses were marked as do not plant. Because of this low-budget approach to the city, the trees have been small at planting, and my suspicions is that at that stage, residents may be skeptical as to whether they look nice. But once established, the trees get great reviews. I fear that too much is being read into this ordinance. To reiterate, it is a needed measure to protect public trees that we are investing a lot of time into caring for. Our practices have been and will continue to be respectful to the wishes of the residents. Thank you, Karen Arnett from the Tree Commission. Okay.
I received an email, I don't know if the rest of the council did, from a Dawn, was it Wheeler?
Walters.
Dawn, did everybody get that?
Yes, sir. Yes.
And she was opposed to the tree ordinance.
Anybody else have any correspondence, tree ordinance-wise or anything? Okay, guests and special events. I don't believe we have anybody. Mr. Bauer? Public input. Anybody here wish to address council tonight here? Committees and commissions. Beautification, Ms. Lingo.
No report.
Business partnership and alliance, Mr. Young.
No reports.
Economic development, Mr. Young.
We do have some movement. The mayor mentioned it last meeting. It's a property that the development is looking into, so more to come on that once that comes through, but that's all I have for right now.
Okay, thank you. Finance, Mr. Parsons.
We had a committee meeting prior to this meeting to go over the results through August, and had some questions, some reclassifications to be done. Everything is going well on the revenue side. We should come out ahead on our revenues of what we budgeted. Expenses, we have a few things that are over budget, some things are under budget, but it looks like, all in all, we're gonna come out on pretty well where we budgeted the expenses. Take some money from here and put it there, but looks like things are going very well through August, and then hope nothing major comes up in the next 4 months.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons. Questions? Okay, library, Ms. Dosa.
Good evening, everyone. First thing is that there will be a Customer Appreciation Day at the Mount Healthy Library on Monday, October 16th, from 4 to 7 p.m. There's more information about what's going to be held there on the link on the library's main website, so go and select Mount Healthy. But there will be a customer appreciation. Also, the library has been reaching out to the Mount Healthy city schools to try to get students registered for a library card and teachers for educator cards, so that they have books and other materials available for their usage from the library, which I think is a great idea. For parks and commissions, I am just going to go on. We have an upcoming movie night in the park this Friday. September 22nd, starting at 8 p.m. Hopefully, you will come out. If your families are available, come out and support it. It starts at 8 p.m. We're watching Super Mario. And there will be giving out ice cream to all the children that come. The chief has made available 2 officers specifically assigned to the movie night so that they can be around from 7 p.m. to the end. And then also with parks, I am applying for 2 different grants. One is for land and water grant with the ODNR. It's due in November. It's for a 50% project cost to help with developments of outdoor recreational centers and areas. The other grant is through T-Mobile. It's a hometown grant. And the amounts are from up to $50,000 for recipients, and it's to, again, develop public outdoor recreational areas. And that grant is due in December. So it's for small towns with populations less than 50,000. So those are 2 things that we're working on, and then we're working on the upcoming and other events to have in the park. So if you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you, Ms. Dosa. Questions? Okay, safety, Mr. Redding.
No report tonight, sir.
Okay, school, Mr. George.
No report.
Streets, Ms. Rissel. Okay. Mayor's not here tonight, so we'll move on to the city manager, Mr. Bauer.
I don't really, I feel like I'm just going to repeat kind of what I said last time. Fire and police union negotiations continue to go well. I said the end of this month. That would mean by next week we'd have to have things ironed out. Probably won't be next week, but I still feel good about it. So hopefully within the next few weeks. Let's see. That's really all I have. I was going to mention the Veterans Memorial pavers. So we're going to run a deal where it's $50 per paver to have it put over by the cannon, right? What is it normally?
65.
Normally 65, so from September 11th to November 11th, it'll be $50. So just trying to drive a little more interest to putting those pavers in, so let people know. And I think that's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bauer. Questions? Okay, we'll move on then. Finance Director's Report, Melanie Brandis.
I just had your August month-end reports in your packet, and like Bob said, we met, got all his questions answered, and we'll just continue on.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions? Okay, on to ordinances and resolutions. We have a second reading on an ordinance, 23-2016, an ordinance adding Chapter 101, City of Mount Healthy Tree Ordinance to the Mount Healthy Code of Ordinances. Okay. Where do you want to begin discussion, council? We've had a first reading.
I knew it.
It's always mine.
You also have a letter from the mayor explaining his wishes, I guess you might say, on this.
We have an Exhibit A, and then on the back is a draft. Is that the new Exhibit A? The second page is the Exhibit A now. And the removal of trees section was taken out, and just a one line was put in: no person or property owner shall remove a public tree for any reason without approval from the city manager. Okay, so I guess that takes care of
The removal section. So A and B were both taken
Yeah.
out, basically. Okay. Yeah, which pretty much falls under property maintenance. A lot of it did, so.
Yeah.
When it talked about private property owners.
And then the preferred species list was taken out and the prohibited species list was added.
Any other questions or comments, council? Usually don't open this up to public, but Mr. Weesey, do you have any comments?
Sure. We actually did make several different changes through it, taking your input. that
Can you
we
go,
had.
go to the microphone?
We did make several different changes going through it, that we took your inputs as we had gone through section by section and tried to incorporate that. Some of those are just clarifications that this is referring to public trees in all situations. This is also, we made it very clear that we were looking to follow the industry ANSI 300 standards, that we tried to make that consistent all the way through. To the point that you were making earlier, Mr. Parsons, we did go ahead and really shorten down and make it very clear is that, hey, you're not supposed to take out the trees, but you can get permission to do it if you need to. And that we tried to combine a couple of those lines together. And then under the contract requirements, there had been a line also that had said something about that if you're doing construction work. We had said down below, if you damage something, you gotta take it out. We just added that as an additional line to the whole paragraph on construction work in that section. And for the most part, that I really do see that it was a cleaning up. You know, working at GE, we go through design reviews like crazy, and it's always interesting to see how things improve as you go through those reviews. And I feel like that's the same thing that occurred with us here. That we had something we thought was good, came in here, but just that time of talking with you and spending some time, we were able to improve upon it and actually make it a refined, a much better presentation and ordinance in what's now before your eyes.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yes.
One question specifically, if you can, okay. On a hypothetical, if this passes, I would not be able to remove the tree in front of the barber shop, even though it's completely destroying the property?
That would not be yours to remove. It would be one for the city, but it would be one that you could always come and say, hey, this is a problem. And as we just talked about before the meeting, hey,
Right.
it's in the wrong place. It's causing problems.
I'm just going for hypotheticals.
Yeah.
Because in a lot of cases, the plumber goes out. I own the barber shop, huge tree in front, and it's destroying the sidewalk and causing issues, and it's causing issues with the plumbing. If it's a personal residence and somebody calls like a plumber out and they're like, oh, you gotta do this, this, and this, I don't know if they're gonna know or understand the process to actually be able to do that. Chances are the plumber's just gonna rip up the lawn and remove the tree and.
It all depends on the trees there, and it's their whole situation. There's times people make mistakes. We have errors. We have a way that we have a city that also is understanding. We have many people that are understanding of situations. If you have a plumber coming in, you've had your lines broken, there's an issue going on. And we do know we have trees that are planted. Over the years have been planted by private individuals, have been planted in situations that the trees are just not in the right place.
It's not the right kind of tree.
Wrong, yeah, correct. And that's something that, going through the Tree Commissioner Academy, it's preached. Right tree, right place. That's what you gotta have. And we have a lot of trees that are not the right tree in the right place.
Right.
So the reality is, we're gonna have situations like this that come up all the time.
So you're just hoping to cycle through and eventually get to the point
Right.
where it's correct.
Correct. Yes, that is the process we're looking at. I mean, when you're talking to trees, I mean, just much like you do with a lot of your other infrastructures, it's not a short term, you do it and it's done. It is a long-term process, It's something that you take years to address as you go on, as you have the resources to do it, as you see the priorities on them. Does that help?
It does.
All right.
And if I can add something. So in my day-to-day job, I work as head of operations for a tree service company. And we work with the city of Cincinnati and multiple other cities and townships that have tree ordinances. And the city of Cincinnati's ordinance is infinitely more strict than what we're wanting to put in. And it usually only takes a day and a simple phone call. You know, and it's gonna be kind of the same with this ordinance as well. You know, they would just need to reach out to the city, let them know which tree they need to remove, let them know why. And the big reason why this helps us out as well is that information disseminates down to us. And that way we know that that tree's been removed and we can plan to plant, like Dwight said, a tree that's more suiting to that location.
Okay, thank you. Okay, council, any other questions, comments?
This is Ms. Walker's email that she sent was concerning this, and she was concerned that people wouldn't have an opportunity to say no, they don't want a tree, but I think we've discussed enough here. I don't know, we haven't decided opt in, opt out, and that doesn't matter. But everybody who's going to get a tree or plan to get a tree will have an opportunity to say no, they don't want it, and they won't get it. So that should address
I think so,
Ms.
yes.
Walker's concern, I think.
Where does she live?
I think she lives on Perry.
She lives on Elizabeth.
Elizabeth?
Elizabeth.
Okay, I'm sorry. Elizabeth.
Right in front of Madison, that house with,
Elizabeth across from.
stuff in the front yard, the fridge and everything.
Oh, the big.
Oh, okay.
I know
The
what
big
you're
White
talking
House.
about. Yeah.
Two from you.
Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, I have to say I don't know her. My bad. Okay, council, if there's no other questions, comments, I would ask for a motion to adopt.
23.
Could I make a motion?
You guys are worrying me.
What's that?
Go ahead.
Make a motion to adopt ordinance number 23-2016.
Okay, Mr. George has made a motion to adopt. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Lingo has seconded. Roll call.
Mrs. Lingo?
Aye.
Mr. Parsons?
Aye.
Mr. Redding?
Aye.
Mrs. Dosa?
Aye.
Mr. George?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Mrs. Rissel?
Okay, by a vote of 7-0, ordinance 23-2016 is adopted.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
moving on. Second reading of a resolution, 23-1212. A resolution authorizing the city manager to submit an application to receive the urban canopy restoration grant and to execute any contracts or documents as required.
So this is, again, similar to OPWC road projects. You're just authorizing me to submit for the grant. There's reference to an Exhibit A, which would effectively be Dwight's spreadsheets, which actually says what the project is and how much it is. That's really all there is to it. The language in here just kind of says 2,500 to 25,000. So I mean, it's obviously that's the full range of what the grant offers, but it would just be whatever. I forget what Dwight's amount is that we'd be committed to, but
The total was 11,572, of which included 2,830 of volunteer hours and amount effort also on that. And then there would be a matching grant of 7,895,000. And this was including funding, but also hours of work by the city.
Yes.
Okay.
So this would authorize me to submit an application, but I think we'd also want to just kind of give a 2 thumbs up of whether or not we approve with what the projects that are submitted, if we agree with them, and how much money we're willing to be on the hook for.
So you're asking the city to budget about $2,300, and then you're asking the streets department to do work totaling, I'm not sure how much, 5 or 6 or 7,000, and then volunteer time. And you're asking for a match of $7,900?
Yes.
Okay. So you're looking at about 19,000 total?
That would be 19,000 total, yes.
Okay.
I forget what would the timing of the projects actually be?
First one would be done in the springtime, with the, and actually, we can try to get a little bit in the winter, we can get the funding approved and get it set up for, the arborist to go around and then removal of limbs before leaves get on. It's actually easier to do that before leaves are on.
Sure.
And the second part would be done, over the summertime for the reconditioning of the soil with trees to be planted in an October timeframe.
What are you going to do if you don't get the grant?
If we don't get the grant, we will downsize the amount of work that we would be approaching the city to be done. That would be the bottom line.
The number of trees you'll plant?
It would be a downsizing. We may not do the arborist. We may do, you depend internally on our Tom to do his own assessment of what trees and requesting the assistance of removing some of those. Not necessarily removing the trees so much, but actually doing some of the pruning. Let me use the correct word. Hazard reduction of tree portions. And under those cases, we would also then downsize what we would do for planting and soil remediation.
Okay. I would say if you're going to start this work in, say, March, you'll need to get, if this is approved, you'll need to get with the city and have letters or the notification somehow sent out in the next couple months. I think you need to give homeowners 4 or 5 months at least notice to opt out or to say they don't want a tree.
Correct. If we were going to be looking at doing the tree planting and we get this information, it would be going out in a March timeframe, and we'd probably be following up with a June, July, with that August then being the actual remediation of soil.
Okay. So you're not planting in March or April?
We're not planting in March or April.
okay,
That would be the hazard reduction pruning.
Okay, I see. Okay. I was confused on that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the one, and actually, the sooner we can get to some of that stuff, probably the better, because we, shoot, if we can do some even this fall before Justin has to take his snow plows out.
Yeah.
I want to get a couple of those.
Dwight, you have some, the city, I suppose I would say, has some dead trees in the cemetery on Compton Road, Mount Pleasant. You'd be driven by and seen the top of the trees completely dead. Is that part of your hazard reduction?
It would be something that we would be looking at doing.
Now, They could be part of the Mount St. Mary's Cemetery. I'm not sure exactly where they're sitting.
Yeah. There's
Then it
a,
becomes
yeah.
private trees.
You're bringing up a good point that, a lot of our focus has been on the street or the tree lawn area along the streets between the sidewalk and the street. But there is a lot of other public land within city-owned land here, and some of that, even as a tree commissioner, I gotta admit, I don't know all the different properties in those areas. And so looking at the cemeteries, okay, who owns which one? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either.
So it would be a great question to be taking a look at, and we can take a look further. Which property was it again?
Well, I thought it would be the back of Mount Pleasant Cemetery. If you come out Martin Street to sit at Compton and
Compton and
Yeah,
You know,
Martin,
because
right there by Compton, that one,
look
okay.
straight across
Yes,
Compton Road, you'll see a couple dead trees that are sticking up very high. They're easy to spot. And once again, I don't know if they're city trees or whether that belongs to St. Mary Cemetery, which is an entrance off of McMacken Street.
okay.
Right here, you go straight into the cemetery. So I don't know who they belong to.
And I thought that was all one cemetery,
No,
so,
it's two separate cemeteries.
okay.
One's owned by, I guess, Assumption Church or the Archdiocese, and the other one's owned by the city.
Okay. Do they actually have, well, I will have to look, though.
Yeah. Well,
Take a look.
Once again, you'd have to figure out, somebody'd have to go figure out where the property lines are, because there's no fences or anything inside the cemeteries to separate them.
Well, you just took a lot of effort that I've been putting in off of my plate now, so at this point, I guess I don't have an excuse any longer.
Well, when you come out that way, come out Martin Street instead of Elizabeth and stop and just take a look, you'll see them.
Got it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions regarding resolution number 23-1212?
The other thing I have is on the street guys working, do they have enough time to do these things also? Being a guy down, and if they replace, and what kind of time structure are we looking?
Council wants to make it a priority, we'll find a way to make it work.
I guess you would have to depend on when the snow's gonna hit, you know, if the snow's gonna hit.
Well, just in general, he's still cutting grass, he's still got things.
I had asked you though at one time if the tree commission is gonna take care of the trees, and you said absolutely. So why does the city have to be involved with taking care of those trees?
The effort that we're looking at the city to do, that's under this budget, is the remediation of soil. And that is the digging up where we've got that concrete that's buried underneath the edges of the soil. It's coming in with a backhoe, essentially, and your dump truck. You gotta fill it up and you gotta pull it in. That is an effort that goes beyond what our capability is. I'll put out the little bit. I would love to be able to borrow the watering truck that we have so that, Justin and his crew doesn't have to go and do some watering. And I don't know if we have a means of doing all of that, and that's just it. This is city property that needs to be used to go do this effort. That's why we need the city to do it.
Okay, but you'll be pruning them or whatever and topping, well, you don't wanna top.
We're not gonna top, no. The hazard reduction pruning would actually be by a contracted licensed arborist, a certified arborist, to actually do the correct type of cutting on those trees. The efforts that the tree commission will be involved in is the actual, oversight or involved with, hey, we've gone around and done, we know where these efforts need to be done. You have two different companies that are doing the assessment as then doing the cutting. We would be sort of the in-between. You'd also see us then in the planting of the trees, which is the things that we have done for years now, with volunteers, coordinating this efforts. At this moment, our key coordinator on all that is overseas in Denmark, so we're actually not looking at being able to probably get any planting done this year just because we don't have any trees actually lined up that we can go buy at the moment and a place to go plant them. We didn't get any letters out to anybody, so at this point, we're just saying, okay, that's gonna have to be in next year, trying to go do a planting. We just ran out of time.
Okay. So you basically just need the city workers to help you dig up and
Yes,
not
for
the
them.
maintenance afterwards.
Not for the maintenance afterwards, of maintaining the trees. This is just for getting the soil ready so we can do the planting.
Thank you.
Okay, council, what are your wishes? Is there any more discussion?
I make a motion to adopt resolution number 23-1212.
Okay, Mr. Parsons has made a motion to adopt. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. George has seconded. Roll call.
Mrs. Lingo.
Aye.
Mr. Parsons.
Aye.
Mr. Redding.
Aye.
Mrs. Dosa.
Aye.
Mr. George.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mrs. Rissel.
Okay, by a vote of 7-0, resolution number 23-1212 is adopted. Congratulations, Dwight.
And thank you.
Okay, that's all the resolutions and ordinances we have. Old business. Mr. Parsons.
We need to talk about the tax levy and educating the public on what's going to be on the ballot in November. Are we going to get door hangers printed or a mailer or something?
I can do all that. I can update the door hanger that we put together for the last one. That should be pretty simple. And then, yeah, I'll just check our order, see how many, did it seem like we had enough last time? Just do the same amount? Or, I mean,
We should probably get a few hundred more.
okay.
We have an issue number for the,
I
You
gotta
know what that
check,
is?
I don't recall. Might be in my email somewhere. I'll have to look.
I think that was coming out last week or something, but
Gotcha.
But I think we also need to make sure that we hit all of our electronic sites that we possibly can. So maybe a letter from the mayor asking for this on the various sites that we use,
explaining what it is.
explaining what it is.
Yeah, could probably get some input from the chief as well, since it's police. I mean,
Yes.
I'm sure he could give some wording too, as what he would plan to use it for. I'll get a mock-up of the door hanger. I can get that emailed to everyone, just make sure everyone agrees with what it looks like, but it'll be same as what we did last time, but I'll get that sent out.
Anything else, council? Old business.
Do we have a deadline for filing for the Community Development Block Grant? Is that coming up in October or something?
Which, remind me, which one is this?
Well, it's one we do every 3 years.
I know, yeah, I know we're into a new window, and I know the Third Century is looking at one. I'll have to double check.
But it's time to apply for another one, so
Right.
we need to discuss what we're going to use it for.
Right. We've been meeting with the county, and I mean, there's a handful of grants that we may be eligible for, so still kind of going through that process, but yeah, we'll.
Okay, just check into it.
Yep.
Okay.
On that note of grants, Ms. Dosa, you're applying for some grants for the park that you talked about. Would that one be for the new playscape, new play
Structure?
structure?
Yes.
Okay. And if we miss out on that, I hope we don't. Okay. But then can any of this other money, these other things, the 3-year cycle on the developmental block grant, can any of that be used for a playscape? Just trying to find some way to get the park back up for the little kids.
Right.
Mr. Redding?
In the past, we've used CDBG money
For the
to
park.
do a lot of the park projects,
Yes.
from the stage to the shelter, not the shelter, we used to call it the shelter, the
Yeah.
gazebo, yes. We've used dollars.
Okay.
We have some left in our current 3-year cycle that is, I mean, we're trying to use it, but there's potential that it could also be used for a playground, so
Okay.
still looking
All
into
right,
that.
well, I'm very interested in getting something back up there as soon as we can. I've heard from a lot of people, and I don't usually hear a lot of stuff from people, but I heard about this a number of times. So
Sure.
it's just something I wanted to make sure we're pushing for.
Sure.
And then once I understand that there's, it's hard to come up with money, so.
Right.
Okay, other old business, council? Or the same old business? New business then.
Of course. I will not be in attendance at the next council meeting.
Okay. Going to Denmark?
Right.
Well, it's sort of in the opposite direction. Okay, nothing else, council? No new business? Thank you all for coming.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Ms. Lingo has made a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Ms. Rissel has seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.